Yeah, I only did it so I could try it.
Can you
Tonios.
switch when you've got your ship launched? So can you jump between the two?
Yeah, you can. So, and that's really I think that's quite sexy as well, so that you can figure out for yourself what you need to do, whether you're, like, say if I was in my Cobra, if I was in my Anaconda, for example, I would probably be in the fighter most of the time, and I'd let my NPC do the combat maneuvers, seeing as the combat maneuvers in an Anaconda are a bit slow and ponderous and not really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But if my ship was having problems, then I could jump in and just take over control. And I think that's quite a good idea, really.
Yeah, I think so. As you say, you can just drop and change.
Yeah, I do like that ability that you can, you can chop and change. This place is getting quite popular for fighters, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ooh, I just ducked out the way of Commander Gimme there.
Oh, so you request dock.
Yeah.
Ooh, sweet.
It is shiny, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can see myself having a lot of fun with this. And what about you, though, Chris? Because I know you've often wanted the ability for something to protect you
hello.
whilst you're doing your trading and things like that. Does this fill the bill for what you're wanting?
Yeah, I think it. On paper, it definitely does. I mean, I'm interested to know what sort of difference it makes to certain aspects of the meta. So one of my things that I've had an issue with over the balance of Elite Dangerous has been that trading ships, it's not a proper competitive multiplayer environment because it's not what they call a zero-sum game, which is that a zero-sum game is where all the different players all have different setups and different loadouts, but actually when you compare the advantages and disadvantages, you end up with a completely balanced sheet. The problem with Elite Dangerous is that if you're a trader and someone else is a fighter, the trader always loses. And there's no two ways about that. There is simply no balance between fighters and traders. So what I like about the idea of these fighters is that it gives the traders something that they can do to kind of defend themselves against the fighters and buy themselves time to get away. What I'm not sure about, of course, though, is that it's an arms race. Do you know what I mean? If you were to say, well, you've got robbers out there who've got knives and you've got traders out there who've got no weapons, let's give the traders guns so then they'll be fine against the robbers who've got knives. Then what happens is the next day the robbers have all got guns. So the problem you've got with this as part of the meta is that as well as the traders also having additional fighters that they can bring to the party, pirates also have an additional fighter that they can bring to the party. So I'll be very interested to see in practice how much difference it makes to whether traders feel that they can just play in open without worrying about just getting ganked all the time. I mean, I suspect that for a fighter ship, for a player who's kitted out for combat, I suspect that losing a level 5 internal component just for the sake of a little fighter is not going to be necessarily worth their while. But I think that's a balance issue, and I think that's something that we'll just have to see how well it works. And we have been told that the fighters have like really, really incredible weaponry. I mean, I haven't tried shooting anybody just now. Maybe I should go and pick a fight somewhere. But let me go and see if I can. Let me go and see if I can find a signal or something that I can drop onto and get into a fight. No, don't shoot at me.
Oh,
how is you shooting at me testing how effective my fighters are?
Oh, I got your shields down quite quickly.
Yes, because I'm just in the basic. Actually, let me cancel that. I want to see how much we can upset my passengers. So let me drop my shields.
Oh yes, okay.
Shield generator offline. Okay, my shields are down.
Okay, I'll just do you a couple of pot shots.
Hurt me, but try not to kill me.
Well,
keep going. Take me down to about 20%.
Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and where are you? Thane.
Hang on, let me turn off my crimes. There we go.
I can't. I was going to see if I could target your passenger cabin.
That's cool.
I can't do that, unfortunately.
So do I get a status for my passengers in my infantry? Oh, I do. There we go. Look, I can see people. Yay! Okay, so we're down to. What are we down to? 40?
Are your passengers annoyed yet?
Mission updated. Tommy Cunningham seeks sightseeing adventure. I'm getting messages. Oh, they're not happy. Commander, was that hull damage? I don't handle death very well.
Can't they use escape pods?
Unhappy, miserable. Please dock at nearest station. I've had enough. So there were 4 levels of unhappiness there. They went from
passenger satisfaction content deceased.
Yes, decreased.
What?
So their content it's decreased. Then they're unhappy. It's decreased. Then they're miserable. It's decreased.
Deceased.
I thought you said deceased as well.
So the only levels I can see.
Funny.
Yeah, the only levels I can see are content, unhappy, and miserable.
Do you want me to keep shooting and see if they will actually use the escape pod?
That would be cool.
I won't kill you, but I'll see how low they go.
You might as well kill me. I'm only in beta. I don't give a shit.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's the only time you'll hear me say that.
You'll join the 1% club.
Yeah, the less than 1% club.
Any advances yet?
I don't see any particular change. No change in their status. 9, 7. It'd be interesting to see if I die and respawn, whether or not they die.
Doesn't passenger cabins only the very top of the range passenger cabins?
Do it! Kill me now!
Do it.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. So
did your passengers say anything to you, or
they did not? They did not chirp up throughout that. They obviously don't go below miserable.
Oh well, I'm now wanted.
Oh, I turned off crimes.
Oh well, I'm still wanted.
Oh, okay.
Oh hum.
I might have not turned off crimes until after you started shooting at me, though.
Fair enough. So. Yeah, it's only a 310 credit Dorman bounty, so it's not a big deal.
What, for killing me? That's harsh.
maybe because you did the
yeah.
You turned it on or something in time.
So my passenger's parting shot as I've respawned, I've got a message. I shan't be recommending your services to my associates, Commander. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I sat there and invited someone to kill me. Well, there we go. So inventory. So I've still got my cabins. Be interesting to see if I go into starport services. Crew lounge. Is there like a mission thing? No, sorry, not crew lounge. What we're talking about? My crew are all dead as well.
Oh, of course, yeah. I killed your fighter pilot as well, didn't I?
Yeah. Passenger lounge. There's no kind of feedback though in the passenger lounge like there is.
No.
I think. Is there with missions? Transactions. Oh, it's in there.
It is lovely docking. Yeah, I was a wee bit more enthusiastic in my docking, shall we say, and it came in just under 100. And yeah, it's nice.
Okay, I'm going to take an expert pilot out with me. Chet Ashley. Best thing I suppose I could do is load up with something really expensive and see if I can get myself interdicted.
Makes sense. Right. Have we got anything else we want to talk about this evening before we keep? And I mean, I'm aware we're just basically playing the game tonight, but is there anything else we're wanting to cover apart from things that we're playing with in 2.2?
But there's added engineers with 2.2. There's 4 extra engineers that, by the looks of it, and I don't know if anyone's unlocked them yet, but they mod things like your life support, chaff, and other bits and pieces. I don't know if it's just cosmetic things like make them lightweight, or there's actually stuff in there that's.
You know what? You know what I would love for my heatsink that can be modded. I want an explosive heatsink. I think that'd be so cool. You know, it's like you drop a heatsink, and then instead of it just fading to nothing, it uses all of that stored energy and goes boom.
Like Django Vet's thing on the the Star Wars thing.
They're thermal things, aren't not thermal. Aren't they sonic things?
Seismic charges.
Yeah. But yes, that kind of idea is like, yeah, I think that'd be so cool. You know, you've got so much energy that you basically dumped into this itty bitty module, and then instead of it just sitting there and cooling down, let it go bang. That seems perfectly fair to me. No, I'm being checked out. Ouch, by someone in their Fed Corvette. That's Commander Starion. We know him. Hello, Commander Starion.
Yeah, one thing I noticed was the fact that gravity now affects the mines, so that means we can actually do bombing runs.
That is awesome.
Has Lave Station got its base in Deso, or is that not a thing?
Oh, the ground base.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the transmitter? I haven't been there, but I was supposed to be there.
Jarvis.
Yeah, I think I can't remember. I think it's there.
Okay. So we can go and do a bombing run on the ground station.
Yeah.
How come, Ben? Ben, you are always the first to go after our assets. You're the first to go after the orange Sidewinder, and now you want to go after a blooming transmitter. I'm thinking that you really work for Radio Sidewinder, and you really put us out of business.
I was talking to Simon earlier today, and it is hot and orbital, I'm afraid. Sorry. Not Radio Sidewinder, so they are awesome guys too. But I'm kind of gutted that there aren't any neutron stars nearby, because I was looking forward to seeing the plumes coming out of that, but I'm not going to fly there this evening to have a look at that in this Orca. Although not Orca, it's a Beluga. What's my jump range? I haven't actually looked at that. So I do not know what my jump range is. If I go to my galaxy map, then I'll see. Oh, someone's shooting me. Uh-oh. Oi, Sarian!
You got a bounty against you, though, haven't you?
I do.
There's all the exploration stuff that we've still got to cover. There's all the new volcanic flumes and all the extra tectonic stuff that they put onto the galaxy map, and there's just so much to cover on this. We're not going to cover it all in one show.
No, probably not.
Mind you, we said that about Gamescom. And we never got around to actually going over any of it, did we?
That's a very good point. So this weekend we've obviously got Elite Meet.
We have.
We have both Elite Meet and EGX is happening this weekend as well. So I'll be going to EGX. I've got passes to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, obviously. But I'm not going to be able to make it to most of Thursday because obviously I've got this annoying thing called work. But ignoring that, then I will be there. Obviously, I'll be at. I'm going to be going to the Planet Coaster. Ha ha! Sorry, we managed to successfully drive off a Federal Corvette. Fighters in the bay. I'm quite happy with that. Sorry, that was a bit of unexpected excitement. So we've got Elite Meet. I think it's 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or something on the Thursday, not the Thursday, on Saturday. Sorry. on Saturday. There is the Planet Coaster event that is going to be there on Saturday as well. So I've got no idea what Frontier are talking about, but they'll be doing a developer panel there. If anybody has anything they're wanting me to actually have a look at whilst I am at EGX, please email us at info@laveradio.com, and I will do what I can to go and have a look at anything at EGX that you want me to. I know there are a couple of things that I have interest in seeing. There's the Planet Coaster thing, obviously, but there are a couple of other bits and bats, like I want to see what's in the Battalion 1944. There is something which on the Friday called In Space, No One Can Hear You. What is it again? It's basically in Space, No One Can Hear You score, where they're talking about the dynamic soundtrack of No Man's Sky. So I thought that could be quite an interesting panel. And then this, I don't know if this is something that you might be interested in, Jarvis, but there's a thing that it looks like it's procedural generation stuff in the Tides of Numenera. I've not heard of that game, but it looked like something I thought you might be interested in, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so I've just been interdicted, so I'm deploying the fighter to see what happens.
Okay.
I did manage to deploy my fighter, and it saw off a Viper Mark III fairly quickly.
That was with your AI fighter, was it?
Yeah. Killed it. I got 500
cool.
or 600 credits for it. So I'm just deploying my fighter now against this guy who the fighter seems to be engaging him now that he's actually marked as an enemy to me because he opened fire. So let's have a look. He's in an adder. So each shot's doing about 5% hull damage.
Okay.
That's pretty impressive, really.
Not too bad.
For how small the ship is.
Right. Shall we move down? We've got a couple of questions that people have asked us. So Marco Yelich, I'm going to say that's his name. It might be murdering it, and if it is, I'm very sorry, Marco. Marco was asking us on Facebook, saying, "I just listened to episode 122." And Chris was asking for feedback on the plot reveals in Elite Dangerous. I concur that how they are being done for the benefit of the 1% players, whilst the rest of us just hear about it afterwards. You're best to go visit the wreckages after the fact. And the notion that Frontier have so heavily handed, almost led us by the nose to the site's poor game design.
Well, on the Frontier, Michael Brooks was discussing this point in the DDF not so long ago, and it's not a spoiler to say that that thing about the live event, the 1%, has been listened to, and they are making adjustments for the future so that people will not be feeling as if they've left out so much.
Okay.
I think it's difficult, though, in any kind of, sort of group event. If you're going to have story that's based on revelation, it's very hard to do that in a way that doesn't actually only involve the first sort of audience to come to it. I mean, it's a bit like if you have a film the kind of strength of the film is based on a twist, because not only do you then get problems with spoilers where people come along to you and say, well, hey, this thing happens in this movie, like I've never seen The Sixth Sense, but I could tell you what happens in most of that film. I've never seen it, but people just talk about it.
I'm the same.
So there's that kind of thing, and there's also the element of is a story still worthwhile even if you know the twist? And I think that's the other thing that's tricky, because, I mean, like I say, something like The Sixth Sense, already knowing what the ending is, I feel no particular need to watch that movie, because the way people talk about it and the way that movie's come across to me, all that film has to offer, as I understand it, is an incredible twist that blows your mind if you don't know about it. But actually, if you do know about it, what does it actually do for you, as a film, as an audience? And it's a bit like that with the stuff in the game. If you have stuff which is out there in the universe where the big fun of the gameplay is the initial reveal, what does that plot and what does that gameplay offer you once the reveal is no longer the thing that's interesting? Do you know what I mean? It's like the barnacles. The huge thing was the discovery of the barnacles, but actually they haven't, necessarily led to...
They're not doing much.
Yeah, they haven't led to a kind of deep set of gameplay levers, which means, oh, well, if I go to the, barnacles, I can go and do, this, that, and the other gameplay. And yeah, I think they just need to look carefully at introducing plot elements in the game that aren't just about knowing stuff, but actually give you interactions. And to be fair, like with the barnacles, you could shoot at them and get meta alloys and bring them back, and it was curing UA bombed stations or something like that. So there was a slightly wider thing going on, but I think that's the sort of thing they need to look at. They need to look at, is this element of plot and gameplay significant beyond the first revelation? Because if it isn't, then it's only going to appeal to that first 1% who actually uncover it. It's not actually providing gameplay, necessarily to anyone else.
Well, like I said, they have taken that on board, and they're looking at different ways to get the same kind of content over.
I think one of the things that they need to do is maybe doing some telegramming. So, for example, if we take the barnacles, now that they've been discovered and things like that, we know that the Federation and the Imperials, and I'm assuming the Alliance, everyone's kind of interested in them. So maybe there should be missions generated all across the bubble saying, hey, Commander, we know you and we trust you. Could you go and have a look at this for us, please? Which maybe involves, it's just a simple collection mission. That's what it boils down to. But it's go here, go and get us a metal alloy, take it back. It's just a collection mission, but it's at least saying, go and have a look at a barnacle, will you please? And wrapping up in a bit of storyline. Is that the kind of thing that you're wanting, Chris, or is it maybe something more?
Sorry, I was engaged in combat a little bit there, so I wasn't totally following it. But what I caught of the end of it, just, you want something like... I guess it goes back to the whole multi-part missions thing. You want something that just gives you a level of complexity. So I'll give you an example. Where you've got points of interest on planet surfaces, you quite often come across escape pods. Now, what would be really interesting is, having got that escape pod and taken it back to a station, wouldn't it be really interesting if you got a message from the person you rescued saying, thanks for rescuing me, I was shot down by this person, I'll give you loads of money if you can go and help me get revenge on them. And then that person becomes like your passenger, and then that gives you another mission. Do you see what I mean? It's like I'm quite late to the party. Missions. Yeah, I'm quite late to the party. I've been playing Mass Effect 2 for the first time. Not played it before. And one of the things that's quite interesting there is you've obviously got the mining mini game, whereby you if you haven't played Mass Effect, basically you have like a galaxy map or a star system map, and you sort of drag your ship around with the mouse pointer, and if you get it near a planet, you can go into orbit and you can start scanning the surface and firing mining scanners off at it. But one of the things that's quite interesting is that every now and again you'll come across a planet and you'll start scanning it for mining resources, and instead of getting mining resources, you'll get like a distress beacon or an SOS, and that means you can then land on that planet, and there's actually like a mission that you can do there. And it's just that way of kind of introducing content that breaks you out of what you were necessarily originally planning to do and taking you into something else which is equally as interesting. And that's sort of what I'd like from some of these story elements, is for it to actually, I'd like to fly to Jax, and because I've gone out there, get a whole load of messages around, oh, Commander, so glad you're here. We've got this whole list of problems we need to deal with. Can you deal with them for us? And in some respects, Elite does do that, but it does it in quite quite a hands-off way. And because it's multiplayer, I keep coming back to this, because really what I'm describing is a single-player experience. You know, when you do these things, the changes that you make, the way they currently are, don't seem necessarily to be significant, which is why I think in Elite Dangerous, the significance that you deliver should really be on an individual NPC basis. Because you can't have a multiplayer environment. Sorry, you can't have a multiplayer environment where just completing 3 or 4 missions drastically changes the outcomes of an entire faction. It's got to be an individual character that you impact on, because you can do that as an individual player. Sorry, carry on.
My point was, I mean, in other MMOs, especially ones which have this kind of feeling that you're supposed to be some kind of hero, you always end up doing the same batch of missions in an instance, and it feels very fake. It feels like, oh, everybody's been through doing that kind of mission, and they compare notes and they do dungeon runs and things like that. I'm thinking of the SOTOR flashpoints in particular, and you know, after a while, it just breaks the whole immersion of the game. The one advantage that Elite Dangerous does have is that because you are so insignificant, you don't have that horrible feeling that, oh, everybody's done this mission, or there is a set plan for you to become the chosen one, if you see what I mean. Yeah. But then after you've become the chosen one, actually no, everybody else is the chosen one. At least in Elite Dangerous, you are an insignificant dot, and an insignificant dot just like everybody else, and you haven't got the delusion that you've been the chosen one.
Yeah, I think it's a very fine line between getting that kind of, yes, it's me affecting things, and trying to appease or to get everyone kind of thinking that they're doing something unique. So yeah, I think it's a challenge for Frontier to kind of get that right. But what Chris said about kind of, you've got your own little mini story arc, even though it is insignificant in the galaxy, but it impacts that one person that you've rescued. I think that's actually pretty cool, because it's a nice bit of the story, and it takes you off on a tangent. You may have just picked that up just randomly, and then all of a sudden you've spent the next hour or two doing stuff to help that person. So yeah.
I mean, technically, one of the things we do want, I think, is the can you give us a lift to Alderaan, no questions asked kind of mission, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing we're always wanting, but without the big Death Star waiting for you at the end. But, you know, to get into trouble on the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I'll give you an example. They obviously had the community goal recently, where as part of that treasure hunt, where the guy was saying he wanted to be delivered enough, you know, booze to spend the rest of his life drunk, or to drink himself to death or something like that. But because of the way the community works, and because of the number of players contributing to that community goal, the guy was delivered something like 4 billion tons of Lave brandy. Do you know what I mean? It's like, do you know what? It's like 2 tons of Lave brandy would probably be enough to drink yourself to death. And it just, you know, so I did, one of the things I've been doing as part of my escape velocity stuff, because I have a private group where I've been kind of engaging in some role play and some story-based activity with my Patreon backers. And one of the things I learned very quickly off the first event that I did, because I had this idea that I'd be sitting in my ship, and my ship would have a lot of damage, you know, all my systems are down, and I'd be sending out a distress beacon for people to come and bring me stuff that I need to kind of get rescued. So I was asking for liquid oxygen, food, water, booze, some technical components, and the idea being that my backers would kind of, you know, drop in and bring me these things, and I would, you know, make it a bit of a kind of self-styled community goal. But the problem I had was that the first person who turns up, realistically, has all of the things you've asked for. So, you know, I ended up, you know, scooping stuff, and ended up with the food and the water and the liquid oxygen and the reactive polymers, or whatever it was that I've been asking for. And it occurred to me that I'm creating something of an unlikely fiction if I'm then just going to carry on sitting there and waiting for another player to turn up and give me all the stuff again. Because of course in the game, I can be scanned and people could see what I've got in my cargo hold. So once I've got that stuff, it's very hard to maintain that role-playing illusion of, oh yes, I need you to come and rescue me as well. And realistically, I've got, like 100 or so patrons. They can't all come and be the person who rescues me. So I've actually learned from my first trip out that those kind of, I say community goals, but those kind of patron goals, if you like, are not, that's not viable gameplay, even for a community of my size, which, as I say, is only a little over 100 players. So if you're talking about, hundreds of thousands of players, you do need to be something. I think you do need to have something that
will scale effectively.
Yeah, that just people feel like they're actually making a contribution. I mean, the CGs have really become a bit of a game of what tier can I kind of get myself into and what rewards can I get out of it. Yeah. But it doesn't give you a feeling that you're actually changing something. I mean, like I say, that guy that was looking for all that booze, after his first 10 tons, realistically, the rest of the people who turned up were wasting their time because he already had what he wanted. But I don't know. It's difficult. It's a difficult thing to balance in an MMO style game, and I think. Yeah, I just think you know. But I mean, Colin, you can comment on this because Star Wars. Which one was it they did? Was it Star Wars Galaxies? Which was the more recent one. So that
the more recent one was SOTOR. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, they had this idea in the design of that it was going to be an MMO, but actually, when you played together on a quest, you were actually going to be in like a 4-player instance.
Yes.
And the idea being that every quest you'd go on would actually be more of a kind of story RPG than necessarily just raiding a dungeon.
Yeah, that's what the original intent was.
Yeah.
It hasn't worked,
That's
in my opinion. I mean, they're fun. I mean, they're on about this, the fourth pillar, the story, as far as this was concerned. But, after a while, you just tagged up with people, you ran the same storyline again. And one of the things that really honked me off right in the first time was I only got into doing those about 3 months after the game had started. So when I actually picked up groups to do that, people were just skipping through the dialogue because they'd been through it hundreds of times before. Yeah. And I wanted to see that dialogue, but I obviously never had a chance. And that's one of the issues with this story. I mean, going back to the community goals, I mean, I had a word with some people in the DDF, and we've been kind of bouncing ideas about community goals. And I think everybody's realised that if they want to have community goals which mean something, there's going to have to be some kind of way for that community goal to put the conflict into the background simulation, so that that there's either a tug of war community goal, or the first team to complete a community goal will mean that the opposing community goal is negated, if you see what I mean. So that some of that, there's a definite winner, because what I've seen so far is that whoever completes the community goal first, then all the players do is they go over to the second community goal and get more money from that. So both the community goals are eventually done, and there's not a winner.
Well, I think the only time that Frontier there's a couple. One that I can think of was Emperor's Dawn. They had a whole plot line for that, and that is something that actually did get stamped on by the players. So I think that was one of the only times where what the players did really did affect the game, because it cut that story out completely.
Yeah, I mean, well, there was a whole hoo-ha about the players unknown artifacting one of the community goals for the Federation, wasn't there?
Yeah.
You couldn't drop that off, and you couldn't actually drop off what the Federation needed because the marketplace had shut down. And of course, the main issue with that was that it turned out that they'd got their sums wrong, where that few unidentified artifacts shouldn't have knocked out the station. But a lot of people were crying foul over that, even though it was a legitimate mistake.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that all community goals now have that as a caveat at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
there's been an interesting point in one of
quickly...
the chats. So there's been an interesting point in one of the chats. What I was saying about the picking up the person in the escape pod and then them becoming an NPC who gives you a mission. One of the things that'd be really interesting and really immersive is if you have a fighter bay, whether that person insists on coming with you as your contract fighter for that mission. So a bit like, again, sorry, going back to Mass Effect 2, just because I've been playing it recently, and it's in my head. When you go on an individual, you have your characters that you amass for your crew. When you go on a story that affects them personally, you have to take them with you. You don't get the option not to include them in your squad. So it could be a bit like that in Elite, in the sense that you could come across an NPC who then says, I've got this mission for you and I'm coming with you to deal with it. And then that person is your fighter pilot for that mission. And then they can kind of talk to you, as you're approaching the mission objectives. You actually get a little bit more in-game kind of generated plot and that sort of thing.
Well,
that's a really good suggestion. That's a really interesting way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, I know, and it does sound like it's a fantastic thing to do. There's only one problem, and I'm putting my developer's hat on here, is that's difficult to code in. It'll take a while to put that kind of feeling into the game, and also make it sort of constantly evolving. So, not everybody's running the same mission again.
I don't think it necessarily matters, because your experience in Elite is essentially individual. I mean, nobody sees... I know what you're saying, because in a game where you're doing missions over and over again, you are essentially then going back to the same place to do the same mission again. But I just think... I don't know. I mean, I kind of don't want to be coming across as criticising Frontier on this, because actually I think they've done a fantastic job, and I can see even more of it in this update. They've done a really good job of actually creating kind of characters around the pilots, and characters around the mission contacts, and characters around the passengers that you pick up. So I do think it's a direction that Frontier are going. I just think that with the kind of the major story elements, I don't see how you can make it a really interesting story unless it's a story that happens to you on a one-to-one basis. And it's a bit like being an audience. You can be in an auditorium of 500 people in the theatre, but you're still personally going on that story journey. It's not like you're sitting down one-to-one with an actor and they're kind of doing it all for your benefit. But I think there's got to be a way of dressing it up in a way that it feels like you're doing something individual and significant, but at the same time making that available to everyone. But I know what you're saying about other people being along for the ride, because when I played Borderlands, I had the same issue. Every time I opened up my game to co-op, all I got was high-level players who knew the game backwards, and they just came in and completed my missions for me. Most of the time they'd completed the mission before I even got to the first waypoint, so I kicked them all out. But then that's me under my rock. You all know how much I like to play under my rock.
You do like your rock. I'm just wondering, Chris, just turning the idea on its head, instead of a passenger saying, I want to fly your fighter, what about getting missions from your fighter pilots? So not only are you're leveling them up effectively as they do some pew-pew, but also once they maybe start liking you, they might say, could you take me back home to see my parents, please? Or something.
That sounds very, very similar to the kind of mechanics they had in Knights of the Old Republic, where the more you got closer to your companions, the more they would open up. But again, it goes back to the development time that will be involved in creating that.
Totally agree. It's definitely development work. But if there's anybody in the game who we're going to want to have relationships with, it's going to be our fighter pilots, especially seeing as they can actually die, the poor buggers.
I think it just involves... I think it just involves a lot of writing. I mean, I don't know, going to a board game example, I don't know if any of you guys have played Betrayal at House on the Hill. No, I'm guessing
I'm
by
afraid
that.
not.
I'm guessing by that silence, I had to know. So it's a game where you start off in the entrance hall of a creepy old house, and there is only the entrance hall. And as you move through doors, you pull random rooms from a deck of tiles, and you place that room next to where you're going, and you gradually build this house by going through doors. And in each room there are potentially icons which represent either items that you find or events that happen. But what happens is you go into a room and it'll say there's an item in here, and then you pick up an item from the item deck. So the combination of what room you've pulled out is random, and the item that you find in that room. So you might find the kitchen, and the next time you play the game, when you pull out the kitchen, the item that you get in there is completely different. Do you see what I'm saying? Then on top of that, you've then got these things called omens, which is all to do with how the game progresses. But the point I'm making is that when you trigger what's called the haunting, there is actually a plot that kicks into the game, and that plot is determined by when you go into a room with an omen. If the haunting starts because of that, the plot is the combination of the room you walked into and the specific omen card you picked up. And that doesn't seem like very much complexity, but actually the game comes with a booklet of 50 different scenarios. So that very simple combination of rooms and picking up a card from a deck leads you to 50 different possible story scenarios. And that's a board game. I mean, that's a printed piece of card which is never going to change from day one when you buy it to day whenever when you stop playing it. And I just think that in a game like Elite Dangerous, where the developers have the chance to change content all the time, and there are so many more variables at play than what there is in a simple board game with cardboard pieces, that actually creating kind of stories with interchangeable elements that feel fresh even though they're automatically generated, I think is entirely possible. And it's a bit like, you see people posting pictures of, people, particularly people who go off exploring. Every day on my Facebook feed I see pictures of incredible planets that I wouldn't have believed existed. There was one someone posted the other day. The planet looked like a cheese grater had been in it, because the whole thing was covered in like 20 kilometre deep valleys and things. And someone else posted a picture they found an Earth-like with rings. And you think that actually, with all the procedural generation stuff that Frontier are doing, they've invested an awful lot of time and an awful lot of energy into making every star system and every planet that you come across completely unique, but built up from the same elements that all the other planets are built up on. And what I'm saying is, I think that there is a way that you can apply that procedural generation to plot and missions so that actually it feels, it can feel fresh. And if you have a combination of a person and an objective and a faction and a situation you fight them in and an attitude towards you and towards any given other faction, you've actually got quite a lot of complexity there, and things could grow out of that.
Well, it's certainly something. It is certainly something that has potential, but I think we'll have to be just carrying on discussing that one another night.
Yes.
Because time is moving on, and we would just like to send out a special mention to one of the Hutton truckers, Commander Hober Mallow, who is doing a special effects sponsored. No, he's doing a bike ride sponsored for special effect over the next. Well, Ben, have you got any more information on this one? On the 5th of November, I think he's doing the actual event.
I think he is. I think he's cycling 50 miles, I believe. And I know it's the furthest he's ever gone for several years. If I think it's actually the furthest it's ever gone ever.
So basically, Commander Hobermallow admits quite freely that he is completely unfit. So this 50-mile thing on a bike will be quite an achievement for him. And if anybody wants to join him on his 50 miles, or either virtually on a push on one of these exercise bikes on a virtual headset, which I do believe, I think Commander Flossie might be doing, but she's certainly matching his 50 miles on an exercise bike at home.
Okay.
But
I cycled 5 miles, well, 5 and a bit, 6 miles today. I sort of cycled that every. Actually, no, I cycled 12 miles today. Because there and back, obviously.
Well, it should be nice and easy for you then, if you're going with him. And he's doing it in remembrance of his cousin Richard Kilcoyne. So we thought we'd give him a little mark of encouragement. And
good luck.
Also, yes, and you'll find his Just Giving fundraising page in the show notes. Once this is done.
If you were to look for Super Hober Special Effects Team Go, you might find it in the Just Giving thing, but it's probably going to be a lot simpler just to find it from the show notes. Because maybe you'll remember that, but I know I wouldn't.
Anyway, moving on. I think we're going to have to draw things to a close this evening. We'll let everybody run off to carry on their 2.2 beta testing, or in my case, non-testing.
And mine.
Yeah, you still not managed to get in, Marshall?
I've been bouncing in and out, so
oh god,
losing the will to live.
So we'll just pay a special mention that we were, I think, myself, Chris, will you be at Elite Meet this Saturday?
I should be.
Yeah. So there's me, myself, and Ben will be at Elite Meet this Saturday. So if you see us, say hi and tell us never let Colin present again. But in the meantime, that's it for another episode of Lave Radio. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, then you can email info@laveradio.com. Contact us at Facebook/LaveRadio, and we're at Lave Radio on Twitter. You can join the Discord chat channel by going to tinyurl.com/Lave Radio, or you can join the TeamSpeak server where commanders come out to have a chat on teamspeak.laveradio.com. Lave Radio is recorded live on a Tuesday evening at 8:30. Well, we try to at 8:30, and then streamed out. So I'd like to thank Chris. I'd like to thank Ben. I'd like to thank Andre. And until next time, fly safe. And if you can't do that, fly dangerous.
Is your life like this? Sounds like someone having an orange inserted into it. Need a safe word. Space can be low. I'm going to see the galaxy.